So in this video, we're going to get upright and not uptight and install these new Bosco bars on the Rivendell. So welcome back, Pathless Pedalers, and if you're new to the channel, if you're into the non-racing side of cycling, riding party pace and living the supple life, if you have found your people, hit that subscribe button. So before we get started, I'm going to share with you guys some quick observations I've had moving from a drop bar bike to a swept bar upright bike like this. The first one is how the bike steers. When you're in a bike with drops, most of your weight is generally in front of the steering axis. That adds weight to the front wheel and it slows the steering down, making it feel less twitchy. On a swept back and upright bar like this moves your weight behind the steering axis. Bar is also much wider, so it gives you a lot of leverage. And in effect, this makes the steering feel a little bit twitchy at first. You do adjust, but it does take some time. Another thing I've noticed is when using handlebars like this, you do have to compensate with a longer stem. So for example, I'm estimating here, but on this bike, I think with a 80 or 70 millimeter stem, that would work for a drop bar. Conversely, with this handlebar, this current stem is 110, and I feel like I could even run a 120 or 130. So the more the handlebars sweep back, you do want to push the handlebar forward so you're not steering at your knees and it's not super twitchy. Another observation is that because this is a swept back and upright bar, you do want the handlebars higher. This seems a little absurd how much this is raised. That's partly the reason I'm going to the Bosco bar, because this has a couple of inches of rise built in, and that should let me lower this to something a little bit more reasonable. I do like a flexy front end, but this is kind of borderline a little bit too flexy. I'm hoping that this will fix that. You might also notice that these handlebars are tilted down a little bit. If I were just going to do pure city riding, I would level these out and probably lower the stem here. But because I do take it on some trails on occasion, when you're going downhill with these bars, you don't want to be flying off the top. So it's advantageous to have these point downwards. But in doing so, to get it in the right position, you have to raise the handlebar. So it's this kind of compromise between, your downhill hand position and everyday riding. Hence another reason I'm switching to the Bosco bar, because I can tilt it back like this for trail riding, but still have it fairly upright relative to the saddle without jacking the stem all the way up. So currently on the bike, these are the Rivendell Billy bars. And again, if you were just riding on the road, flat terrain, I think this would be more than adequate. But because I am taking this bike on some trails, I'm going to switch that to this guy, which I think will put me in a better position for trail riding. So sadly, what that means is I'm going to have to remove all this beautiful new bombs and this twine and everything that Will or Mark or whoever over at Rivendell installed on the handlebar. Apologies guys in advance. They did such a nice job at it that I feel a little bit bad about taking it off, but I do want to optimize it for my riding since I bought the bike. Quill stems are great for lots of things, but definitely not for quick bar changes. I did pick up this tool, which I learned from RJ, the bike guy. You may follow his YouTube channel. And basically it's a reverse plier. So as you squeeze it, it opens up the tip. And the thinking being that you stick this here, squeeze it, open up the quill stem, and it will make it easier to slide the handlebar out without gouging the bar itself. So first things first, I'm going to remove the beautiful tape and the controls. See how easy or not this will be. I'd say the folks at Rivendell are indeed masters at the new bomb. So if this is the look you want, definitely have them do it, because this is just a pretty spectacular job here. I feel bad for undoing it. All right, so this looks like the new bombs with cork. That's why it feels a little bit thicker here. All right, undoing the controls here. So one thing I want to point out is how they put on the shifter. You'll see it's at this downwards orientation. On previous bikes, I've always put it on the top like this, but this actually works really well because you can go through the full sweep with just using your thumb and a knuckle. Okay, got the controls off. There's a little shim here. So unfortunately, I'm also going to have to do all of this because when I open this up, I'm going to pass the bar through this. So sadly, the twine will have to go. I feel terrible. They did such a nice job on it. All right, new bombs removed. All right, so now to remove this tape and remove these controls. So one clever thing as I'm doing this is I realized that they started wrapping this tape here and finishing it here and using the end cap to keep it nice and tidy. So that's why you don't see any end bits over here. Again, bit of a bummer, but c'est la vie. Now I have to get rid of this cork stuff down here. Right, so I've got the controls off. I had to undo this whole side because that's the side I'm gonna weave the bars through. And we'll see if this works. Take off the bolt here that holds the quill closed. And I do have to confess that usually in the past, when I've had to remove handlebars from quill stems, I've been one of those terrible people that just kind of yanks it left and right and weasels it through, but then mars up everything. I am now an adult, so I'm gonna try not to do that. So this tip, again, I learned from RJ, the bike guy. I've not done this before, so hopefully it works as easily as when he did it. I think the tool originally is for removing circlips. Oh, look at that. Whew. Makes it so easy. All right, nice. Okay, this tool, totally worth it to do that. Sweet. Okay, so now for the fun part, time to put on these bars. These are the Bosco Bars. And when I first saw these bars, it didn't make any sense to me as to why you would need so much rise. But after having ridden this bike and wanting to take it more off-road, this totally makes sense because this lets you get the bars up without having to jack up the quill stem so high that it becomes too flexy. Try here. Like so. And then use this guy. RJ the bike guy, you're a lifesaver. Man, we got some upright bars now. Upright, not uptight. Okay, wow. So that was a lot easier than I thought. This tool definitely made it a lot easier. I've absolutely ruined the finish of handlebars in the past, just not thinking about what I was doing or not really caring. So, pro tip. All right, so time to put the shifters back on. And one thing I noticed from the Billy bars is I really wanted the controls a little bit further up so I can put my weight a little bit closer to the steering axis. But all personal preference once again. And I'm gonna rough this in because I'm not quite sure the final resting place. So I think in terms of grips, I was originally envisioning using these long craton grips from Jones. But looking at how much space I have, I think I might just go with these Esi Grips. Okay, so let's put the controls on the other side. Come on, Shim, let's get in there. All right, so we've got the controls on here, not the Esi Grips yet, but just to give you guys a comparison of the handlebar it replaced. As you can see, considerable rise here. Looks like the Billies went out a little bit before sweeping back. These are kind of just a straight bar here. But these guys definitely do go back a little bit further. Okay, so what I think I'm gonna do, hop on the bike really quickly and make sure everything is roughly where I want it, and then install, and then we'll go outside. I'll fire up the air compressor and we'll install the grips. Okay, so I took it for a quick test spin. I've roughed in where I want the controls to be, and it's pretty interesting. It did accomplish what I wanted. It brought me upright. I was able to lower the stem. I also moved the controls a little bit more forward than they were on the other bar. So that brought my hands closer to the steering axis. So what's interesting is with the Billy bars, I was a little bit further back and it felt a little twitchy. Now with the Bosco bars, bringing everything up and my weight a little bit more forward, it has chilled out the steering, which is really, really nice. I do have a couple centimeters now to play with the stem, moving it up and down depending on the terrain I'm riding in. Let's do the last and final part, and that is putting the ESI grips onto the handlebars. So this took about 10 minutes in real time. Time to do the other one. This last little bit takes the longest. Really easy to get about 3/4 of it on, but this last part's just really stubborn. Oh no, too far, too far. All right. Well, that's a first. I've never, I've never had it where it popped on too far. So we got the grips on. Sweet, I'm gonna go for a quick ride. Okay, so back from the quick little test ride, and I know these bars look a little absurd, but they're really, really comfortable. These grips feel amazing. Doesn't have quite that refined look as the New Balance and Twine does, but very comfortable. And I think this bar is gonna do what I want it to do, which is basically bring the controls a little bit higher so I can run them slightly tilted down for better purchase on off-road riding. Also, I moved the controls a little bit more forward, a little bit more in line with the head tube and the steering axis, and that really chilled out the handling of the bike. I think I'm gonna run the Riv upright and not uptight for a couple months, and then I might swap it out, put some drops on, and do a compare and contrast. Because it is pretty fascinating. I mean, what I'm realizing is that it's hard to review just the frame without talking about the handlebar position and the controls and all that stuff, because it does affect the handling of the bike so much. Anyways, hope you like this video. I think it took me in real time about 2 hours to do all this. In YouTube time, it'll probably be a 5 or 8 minute video. If you like this content, consider supporting the channel on Patreon. We're gonna do more fun hacky vids like this. And as always, keep the supple side down.